So recently I've been receiving a ton of comments about revisiting or doing a new video looking at the best watches for women. And today we're gonna be doing exactly that. So now it's been a couple years since I released a video like this. So I wanted to just kind of make a comprehensive guide in 2021, looking at a variety of different price ranges from more attainable watches all the way up to luxury watches, and kind of touch on all different just price segments as we're going about this. Now when I cover watches on this channel, I definitely just cover the watches for the watch's sake. And I think many of the watches I cover would also look very suitable for women as well. So that's gonna kind of follow suit here in regards to the watches that are going to be recommended. I think some of these just designs that some of the brands throw out are so on the nose of just being just like overly feminine, just to like be appealing to some type of demographic or what they think is going to be appealing to a demographic. In this case, we're just gonna be looking at some awesome watches that I think would just be great recommendations if you're just looking for specific watches in different categories and different styles. So going to make this as comprehensive as possible. A couple other things to mention before we jump into this video. A lot of the watches mentioned in this list, we have full in-depth reviews of, so I can link to those down below if you want to delve in a little bit deeper and get some more information. We also have a list playlist on our channel where we go through different like lists and price categories, as well as just building collections with a specific budget. So those would probably be helpful if you're just trying to get an idea and just your research and using those as a jumping off point. So definitely recommend those. And then also on our site, we have a very comprehensive just set of buying guides and blogs. One that I'll call attention to now is looking at some of the best automatic watches. So definitely check that out. That list is pretty comprehensive and should be helpful in your research. But now to begin here, let's look starting up at the more entry-level option. I wanna start at the watch that I think really opened up the door for brand Timex and kind of getting more in line with mechanical watchmaking. Now the version I wanna look at is the Timex Marlin 34. Now this was the hand winding option that was originally unveiled as that first mechanical watch that Timex offered in quite some time, and really, again, opened the floodgates for more mechanical watches to come. Why I think this is a very just appealing watch for a variety of different people out there is going to be the classic wearing dimensions and just the versatility that comes with the dial itself. You're getting these Arabic numerals, a variety of different dial colors to choose from. It's very unassuming and it looks great in a variety of different circumstances and environments. 34 millimeters is going to be on the smaller end of things. You're also getting a hand wound movement, which, you know, if you like just kind of the simple wear and tear, to strap it on, don't have to have that intimate type of relationship with your watch, this might not be the perfect maybe watch for you. But in terms of being, I would say, a dressy casual watch, it would just look very good on the wrist. The Timex Marlin is a great entry-level watch that I think would work very well, and also getting quite a bit of variety at your disposal if you want to go for just different dial options. So one of my favorite dress watches from Seiko has to be the Cocktail Time just collection. Now this is a fan favorite for many people out there, and I think one thing that many people don't consider is there are also alternatives in regards to a smaller case size option available. So my girlfriend actually has the SRR-Y025 Cocktail Time. This has the traditional kind of rib-like finish on that dial surface, very striking. I think it's probably one of the best looking dials that you're going to find for the price range, but there are a variety of these different models available, and I don't think many people consider it. 34 millimeters, just south of that in terms of case size, pretty similar wearing dimensions, but also coming on a bracelet, which I wouldn't say is a world beater, but pretty good once you get it sized up with the pin and collar kind of system. Also comes with their 4R35 and their Hardlex crystal. So just to kind of keep in mind, this watch is not gonna be as durable with that Hardlex crystal. You can't buff out scratches the same way. But in terms of you just want a dress watch or a casual watch, you're not gonna beat around too frequently, the watch I'm gonna be showing is my girlfriend's, so it is definitely beaten up and seen better days, but she absolutely loves the thing, and these are just great watches in this $300, $400 range. Now for the next watch here, we have the Junghans Max Bill. Now there are a few different variations that you can go with the Max Bill family, but this is a watch that really was an embodiment of taking a Bauhaus school designer in Max Bill and adapting a watch from, say, a wall clock to the wrist. And Bauhaus design is very storied. If you're dealing with any industrial designer, they'll be able to tell you all about, or even architectural design. I've done a video in the past describing what kind of the methodology around the production of this piece was really all about. Now there are the automatic versions that are gonna be slightly larger, and then you also have the hand winding versions. I think the hand winding versions are probably gonna be a bit more appropriate. These watches they just look great. I mean, I love just the simplicity of these watches, the curving of the dome, crystal on these with the kind of tailing back of the edge of the dial surface itself. These just kind of pull the eyes in, and there's really nothing else fully like this in terms of its effect. It has this bulbous case shape, very wearable on the wrist, and really just that dial real estate and what it's taking up with that thin outer bezel, it's almost non-existent. You're getting all dial, and it just has a nice presence on the wrist without being overly ostentatious. Now the manual wound version is going to, of course, have to be manually wound, and it is a smaller watch. Then though, you have to factor in that this is all dial, so it is going to appear a little bit larger than that, but it still is a smaller watch on the wrist, but a good just middle ground, and I think Junghans does this exceptionally well, of casual wearability from a modern contemporary perspective, while also being able to play in the field of just traditional dress watch as well. Now, when you're talking value for around $500, even south of $1,000, Hamilton makes some of the best watches out there, no question. Now, what is probably going to be the first stepping stone when you're getting into Hamilton watches is going to be the khaki collection. Now, those are great options as well if you want something that's a bit more casual, but for something that might be, I would say, casual while also getting some dressier undertones, want to look at the Hamilton Intramatic, particularly the champagne dial. Now, I like this model for a couple reasons. One is going to be wearability. 38 millimeters, I think, works on a variety of different wrists out there. It has some good presence without being just a burden on the wrist when you have it strapped on. Good wearable lug-to-lug dimensions, and also getting some suitable water resistance, not something you're gonna have to bang around like crazy, but still does the job. Also getting a very good Swiss movement inside of here that I think just does the job. But the Intramatic just line in general, it has its own design DNA that it is very just, I would say mid-20th century in its approach. You're getting no second hand, so it's rather simple. That also is just going to be representative with the just use of markers on the dial. Very slim markers, it's simple. Also just getting some good just symmetry on that dial as well. And the champagne color here, I just love this, the salmon champagne color. This is something that's kind of become a bit of a fad as of late, but a fad that I am completely behind, and I almost don't want to be a fad because I am all for this dial color and what it's going for. It's got just a great look to it and works incredibly well with the Hamilton Intramatic layout. Now, next up, we have a watch and brand that I don't think many people will consider as being so unisex, because this brand is so synonymous with creating very robust tool watches. But I know from firsthand experience that this is something that my girlfriend absolutely loves. I own the Zin 556, just the traditional black glossy dial, just traditional markers. And she hijacked this thing, and it's basically her watch now. And quite frankly, it looks better on her than it does on me, so I don't mind it at all. But this is a watch that is a perfect everyday watch. It looks great with that H-link bracelet. It's over manufactured, 200 meters of water resistance. It has this very just contrasting, striking dial that I absolutely love for that particular version. But you do have some other variations as well, like the mother of pearl dial, which probably leans a bit more into, I would say, its design rather than just a simple kind of the tool watch aesthetic. You also have the blue dial variant as well with the applied markers and the lack of a date. So quite a few different variations. The wearability on this one is fantastic though. It wears like a true 38 millimeters, which works on a variety of different wrists out there. That H-link bracelet is very, very good for the money. 200 meters of water resistance, so pretty much every different type of scenario you can throw at this thing, and it is going to be able to take the beating. That's a ridiculous amount of water resistance for a watch of this category that's more of just an everyday kind of pilot field style watch. And Zin, I think, knocked that out of the park with these watches. One of my personal favorites, but I don't get to wear it as much as I used to because my girlfriend just wears this thing all the time. Now, another personal favorite of mine, and I think a great watch for, I would say, both men and women, is the Nomos just collection of dress-oriented watches in this $2,000 price range. Now, the models that I think are the best representation of this are gonna be the Tangente, the Ludwig, and then also the Orion. Personally, I think the Orion is my favorite of this trio. I actually own one and have loved it for now over 5 years. It's been a part of my collection. It's just a great contemporary form on the dress watch. You're getting an alpha manual movement. This is a watch that when you flip it around, it's gonna be probably one of the best finished movements. It's worked off a Peugeot 7001, which is essentially an ETA-based caliber, but Nomos has shifted all their production in-house in producing these, and it just really does look the part and looks great on this watch. Now, this is rather minimalist in terms of what it is going for. I think when you look at these watches, some people just say, hey, is that a Daniel Wellington? At first glance, I've had people say that to me in the past, and then I show them this and like, oh, that looks a nice watch, but have no idea. It's kind of a cool, just, stealthy watch, but it looks great. The silhouette of the lugs and the longer lugs is going to make the wearability of these a bit larger, so kind of keep that in mind. 35 millimeters is going to wear larger, 38 millimeters is going to wear a little bit larger, so add like a millimeter or two to the wearing dimensions if you want to get an idea of the actuals here. But simply put, Nomos produces some of the best value for money watches in that price range of like $2,000 or $1,600 for the starting club models, all the way up to the $5,000 price tier. I think that is the range that they just absolutely nail. Their designs are not going to be for everybody, but when they are for you, they're absolutely a great brand to look at. So next up on our list here, we have Rado with the Rado Captain Cook 37. Now this is a watch that I just love the looks of. I also gifted this watch to my girlfriend in a recent video. She was absolutely enamored with this thing for so long, and for good reason. It is a great looking watch. The sizing of it is perfect from a modern, just sports watch perspective. 37 millimeters, lug to lug of 43 millimeters. It's gonna wear pretty true to that, if not a little bit smaller, closer to a 36 millimeter case. But this is gonna work great on smaller wrists that are out there, and has a good amount of presence, and also I don't think overstretches in terms of being too showy. It's like the perfect balance. It has that ceramic bezel with that glossy nature to it that's gonna catch the light in a lot of instances. 100 meters of water resistance, so you have great versatility there, being able to do a lot of different water activities and bring this in the water with you. But some of my other things that I love about this watch is the thickness, 11.1 millimeters, so it's a thin watch on the wrist for a diver styled watch. Also getting that ETA C07 caliber inside, so it has an 80-hour power reserve movement. Why I love that is you could just put this down for several days or a few days and pick it back up and you're all good to go. And I think that is something that's so overlooked when you're looking at some of these other watches that have power reserves typically between like 38 hours and 50 hours. To get something like this in this range is great to have. And also that beads of rice bracelet, when you get it perfectly sized up, there are no micro adjustment points, so that is one thing to consider in that clasp. But it just looks the part. It's slim to the wrist, it fits well on the wrist. My girlfriend absolutely loves hers, and she wears it like every single day. This is probably her favorite watch that she owns, and just wears it all the freaking time. Now to transition into our next watches, I'm gonna look at kind of more traditional rectangular style cases. And the first one is going to be from Michelle. So Michelle is a great entry door into the world of these kind of rectangular style watches, and kind of that nice, I would say, middle ground between affordability in some of their watches, while also, in some cases being a little bit higher end in other instances. But I see it as a great stepping stone into some of those really high end watches from the likes of like Cartier or JLC and brands of that type of ilk. But these watches have a variety of different sizes and different variations. Those deco style watches I think are probably going to be the most synonymous with, I would say, the brand, and then also being the best representation of getting into this design style. These Art Deco, just inspiration in terms of that rectangular finish. And again, just being a really good stepping stone to getting into this design style. A variety of different options to choose from. There are, again, these more expensive options as well as some more entry-level options to choose from. So definitely just keep that in mind when looking at this brand. They're owned by the Fossil Group, so you're getting a lot of support behind this brand as well, and being a large brand and well-known in the United States where I am from. But just, again, good stepping stone into this world of rectangular style watches. But speaking of rectangular style watches, I think the watch that probably epitomizes it is going to be Cartier with the Cartier Tank. Now the Cartier Tank, in terms of the different variations that you can go for, it's quite expansive. You can go for the Solos, you can go for the Cartier Tank Louis, which is gonna be kind of their more higher end mechanical option. But most recently, we saw the introduction of the Solar Beat Tank, which is cool for two reasons. One is going to be one of the more attainable Cartier watches that you can go for, and then also utilizing solar power to allow that watch to tick with quartz oscillation. So high accuracy, and then really a carefree wearing experience while still keeping that buttoned up look that comes with the Cartier Tank collection. Cartier is one of those rare brands that is able to transcend their product categories and just be known as a luxury provider of just amazing goods. Other options to look for also is the Cartier Santos de Cartier, which is another fan favorite and personal favorite of mine. A great unisex watch that could be, I think, worn by couples, which I always love when you can just share your watches with your other significant other. But the Cartier Tank is a true icon in terms of design. It's well known. And if a watch can be worn by anyone from Princess Diana all the way to Muhammad Ali, I think you have a design that's gonna stand the test of time, to say the least. So a brand recently that has absolutely been killing it, and also being a brand that I think is fantastic when you're looking in the world of, say, unisex watches, or being watches that can be enjoyed by both men and women, is with AORUS. Now, a few different options to choose from. You can look at the AORUS Aquas collection. Now, these are gonna be diver-oriented watches, so more sporty in nature, which of course are gonna be very popular right now. The Aquas is their integrated bracelet, professional dive watch collection. Now, the model that makes the most sense for me, there are many different size options that you have at your disposal. You have a 39.5 millimeter, a 41.5 millimeter, and a 43.5 millimeter. I would say the 41.5 or the 39.5 would be the most suitable thing. But I will just say this, the AORUS Aquas Cherry in terms of the striking dial color and what this watch is going for. It just is a beautiful watch, and it looks very good on a woman's wrist. I like the look of this one, even with it being a little bit larger with the case size. It's gonna wear closer to that of a 40mm case. Whenever I see this watch on a woman's wrist, I just love the look of it. It's very sporty, 300 meters of water resistance, so very capable in that regard, but that red, just striking dial, it's just so vibrant and just brings in the eyes, and that just pop of color just works so well within the architecture of the Aqua's case. But when you're talking about pops of color, I also have to mention the AORUS Cotton Candy Editions. Now these are watches that are very unisex in terms of their nature. They're, in terms of wearability, I think they knocked it out of the park on these 38mm, so they're gonna wear pretty true to that, if not slightly smaller than that. A pretty compact lug-to-lug distance. But the star of the show here, without question, is going to be the different dials and also the bronze cases. Now, bronze as a material is something that is going to age or patina over time in a much more expedited manner compared to that of stainless steel, so kind of keep that in mind, but it adds a lot of character to the look of the material. So touching just the oils of your skin as well as maybe water will all kind of cause this aging process to happen, will create that different level of patina. It makes it more custom to you. Now this is going to be a downside for some people, but maybe an upside for others, but also to go in alignment with that pop of color with the case is also the different dial options to choose from. These things are just striking, they're fun. A lot of people do not like these, but I think from a unisex perspective, these can be enjoyed by both men and women. The green dial, kind of more of a teal turquoise color. You have the blue dial as well as the pink. I think watches at the end of the day are all about having fun, and these watches, I think, epitomize that idea of having fun. Speaking of another brand that absolutely knocks it out of the park when it comes to delivering watches that can be enjoyed by both men and women, and models that I think will just walk the line very well, it's Tudor. Now, I'm just gonna mention 3 different models from Tudor as I think just good representations of being a watch that would be suitable and look great on a woman's wrist. One will be the Tudor Royal, so this is kind of their integrated bracelet style, like high horology alternative that kind of has this like Oyster quartz case, has a cool engine turn style bezel, and I think just looks good. You have a variety of different options. It's gonna be a bit more polarizing than maybe the other 2 here, but certainly a watch to consider. Also, I want to look at the Black Bay collection. The 2 models I want to look at is the Black Bay 36. This is kind of the everyday explorer-esque style watch from Tudor. Good value as well. Great bracelet on these, fantastic dial symmetry, and using that Black Bay DNA in a very compact manner for an everyday type of watch that can really just take a beating. But my personal favorite here is going to be the Tudor Black Bay 58. So I own one of these watches. This is another watch that my girlfriend hijacked from time to time. Just love the wearing dimensions on these. Now Tudor for quite some time were seen as, at least in their diver watches, was just being too large, kind of having these slabbed off sides, being too thick, too large on the wrist, and not offering any alternatives to that. And being 15mm thick, that is quite substantial as they started putting in their in-house calibers into these watches. But when the Black Bay 58 came out first with that black gilt dial and then transitioning to the navy, which is my personal favorites, these absolutely just created a huge level of enthusiasm amongst just watch fanatics out there. And I think for good reason. There are watches that can be enjoyed by a variety of different people, those who like vintage wearing dimensions and just want a dive watch that kind of leans into that style. These have just knocked it out of the park, getting an extended power reserve on these, so you get kind of a nice carefree experience, nice suitable water resistance, and just the design and the bracelet I think just works really well. Some don't like the riveted bracelet. I do not mind it at all and don't notice it at all when I have it on the wrist. It really is kind of hidden when you do have it strapped on. But these watches are just simply fantastic, a great choice if you want a dive watch style in a very wearable package. Next up, we have Longines, and Longines as a brand is probably one of the best in terms of just delivering fantastic value in this $2,000 to $4,000 range. Variety of different options to choose from in terms of watches to look at. Just to stick with the dive watches, because I think this is something that's very popular and they probably epitomize this style better than anybody else in this price range. I'm gonna be looking at the Legend Diver 36mm. Now, this watch comes in a variety of different options in terms of dial colors, case sizes, but the 36mm I think will be the most appropriate. It's gonna wear pretty true to that because of the style of watch that this is. This is going to be a compressor style watch, so this is this design that was famous in the mid 20th century as a way for divers to be able to time their dives, and because it has an internal rotating bezel, the whole thought around it was it couldn't be knocked when you're underneath the water, so it just created a more secure experience. But in terms of a modern perspective, I think these watches just look great. They're fun, they're different, they're not something you're gonna see every day, and the wearing dimensions on the 36mm are, I think, very accommodating as well. Pretty reasonably thin. You are getting a different movement compared to the larger case size variants of these. So these are gonna be based off of an ETA caliber inside, sapphire crystal, and just quite frankly, nothing really else like this in this price range, and also being in an accommodating case size as well. So one of my personal favorite models from Breitling is the Super Ocean collection. And one of the areas where they're also very accommodating in terms of case options too, and when you're looking at their entire catalog. The next model we have here is the Breitling Super Ocean 36. Now my personal favorite here is the white dial and bezel. This variation, I just seen it on women's wrists and it just looks great in terms of what it's going for. White and divers, it just is very striking and it looks really good on the wrist. Now this is going to be starting getting into that luxury category, great alternative to that of the Black Bay 58, kind of leaning a bit more contemporary in terms of its approach. Great wearing dimensions at 36mm, nice thickness, as well as a nice lug to lug distance on these as well. But whenever I just see these out in just the wild, I just have always just liked the look of them. And I think Breitling just knocked it out of the park with these. They also have their chronomats that are gonna be another maybe alternative to this that you can also look at. But if you want something from the dive watch perspective, the Super Ocean has to be on a short list. Now, next up here, we have Omega, and Omega has probably one of the most expansive catalogs of watches that you're going to have at your disposal, almost to maybe a negative perspective because you just can get lost in it. But one of the model families that I just want to just key in on is the Omega Aqua Terra. Now, I think from a contemporary perspective in 2021, this is one of the best luxury watches that you're going to be finding out there. Now, the model that we're going to be showing here is mostly the small seconds, the 38mm Aqua Terra. I will keep in mind though that there are so many different variations of these models. And the small second was just recently introduced as a new variant within the Aqua Terra family, getting suitable water resistance at 150 meters. This is just that perfect everyday watch. You're also getting some of the best movements in the price category as well inside of these watches. But just to kind of keep in mind, the Aqua Terra has so many different variations. Now, the one that we're showing here is going to probably lean a little bit more into traditional feminine undertones, but there are also different variations out there that kind of walk a more neutral ground. We've looked at some in the past. All in these 38mm options, I think will just look great on both a man or a woman, and definitely recommend checking it out as maybe that one watch that can take on every scenario with the Aqua Terra. Now, as an alternative to the Aqua Terra, I think you have to mention the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36. Now, when these watches, the new generation of these watches were unveiled in 2020, there were some mixed feelings, but now a year later, these watches are some of the most hyped watches out there. And it's kind of unfortunate because for starting price ranges around $5,600, that's at least retail, they are pretty compelling value for Rolex. They are kind of that entry door into the world of Rolex watches. But the problem is, because they were so well received, they become increasingly hard to get your hands on. And there are a variety of different options to choose from. You have these kind of teal blue colors, which are just fun. The pinks. Also, you have like that oxblood red or that really striking red. There are so many different variations here to choose from. And I think Rolex just knocked it out of the park with these and utilizing color. There's been a lot of brands to follow suit here as Rolex have rolled these out in the past year. Brands just offering up a variety of different colors. As a byproduct of the success of these, there have been many other brands that have created these more like pastel-y variations of models that they're creating. But the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, if you can get your hands on one, is a great just one and done luxury watch that can walk the line of casual wear, but also even some dressy circumstances depending on what model you go for. Maybe don't go for the crazy vibrant colors if that is the case. And now to round out our list here, we have the JLC Rendezvous. And I don't know exactly what it is about these watches, but they just are complete class when you put these things on the wrist. Variety of different options to go for. I like kind of the more traditional, more restrained variations of these without the crazy diamonds and things of that sort. So something a little bit more under the radar. And these watches, I think, deliver just that high elegance, high class that can be associated with a brand like JLC. Now, apart from just the watch itself, the finishing on these are fantastic. We'll get some close-up macro shots just to kind of show you what the dial finishing is like. You're getting these different grain finishes and striations within the dial that just look so good and create such an immersive just experience here. Also, when you flip the watch over, JLC in terms of their manufactured calibers are the best in the business and some of the best in the price range, no question, if not setting the standard for the price range. This one coming with that automatic 898A in terms of the movement inside, well finished with a Côte de Genève finish across the bridges. Also the gold tone rotor with that nice engraving of JLC. It just looks fantastic from top to bottom. You're getting an AM, PM indicator, which is nice and fun, but also I think just has this high-end elegance and opulence associated with it without being in your face. And I think that is just the epitome of class on the wrist. But all right, guys, that is my list of looking at some of the best women's watches in 2021. I know this was rather comprehensive. I've been talking quite a bit. I'm happy to do more of these in the future. So if you do enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Also, definitely check out those just mentions of links down below to those full in-depth reviews that we've done. Also looking at our list playlist, and then also that blog on our site looking at some of the best options of under $500. Also, when you're at teddybaldassarre.com, definitely check out our offering of different watches. Some of the watches that we mentioned in this video are also on the site, full authorized dealer of all the brands, full factory warranty for those brands, so you're completely covered if something goes wrong. Also offering quick and fast fulfillment and dedicated customer support as well. And 9 out of every $10 that we generate from our store goes right back in this content that we're creating. Also, if you want to stay up to date with the content, see some cool photos of watches, definitely stay up to date by following on Instagram as well. But thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.